Hello, I'm Margo Vida, and my research topic is Racism in the Global Media, a Responsibility in Global Communication. My research point of inquiry is that within this research paper, I am seeking to explore the problem of racism in global media and its impact on globalization. My research rationale is that the issue of racism in global media is an extremely important topic because racism affects everyone. Racism on a global scale encourages fear and or hatred against others. Many times the racial profiling shown in the media is of all people are presented with. In this case, it causes discrimination without proper reasoning. This causes conflicts and the problems within different races, ethnicities, and backgrounds. Many people are unaware of this issue, so allowing them to see the facts and realize the issue can help in resolving it. The media plays a very large role in globalization and the way people are affected by it. But the fact of the matter is, globalization through media cannot be stopped. Many Americans believe that we should embrace the benefits of media globalization, such as global communication, rather than fearing and attempting to avoid the consequences, a large one being increased racism. One way to do so is to realize that new information technologies are affecting content and alternative media and forms of resistance are also spreading. The media sets the basis of our everyday lives, how we should behave, what we buy, which movies we watch, and how we should think. In a recent study, a group of Americans were asked to picture a criminal in their head. 41% of them said that they had pictured an African American male. According to the media, we should believe that Iran is bad, Saudi Arabia is good, and the poor people are only poor because they are lazy. This kind of information given to us spreads racial stereotypes, raises intolerance, and xenophobia. The news stations base their stories off of what will provide the best ratings. They show us what will sell, and that is usually negative. The majority of people live isolated lives and choose to stay within their comfort zone, so they tend to shy away from people who are unlike them, avoiding people of other groups, races, and ethnic backgrounds. Most of what we know about other groups we have learned from television and movies. According to the U.S. Census for Latino Statistics and Facts, Latinos constitute about 14% of the nation's total population. Despite this fact, they make up a mere 6% of the characters in movies and television, and are usually portrayed as violent characters the majority of the time. The media mentions illegal immigration left and right, but gives very little attention to the legal, law-abiding citizens. Fox News took an extreme bias in saying, "We cannot stop all murders, rapes, and deadly drunk driving accidents, but our officials should be doing everything possible to prevent those committed by people who have no right to be here." The media is cultivating a logical fear and hatred against Latinos, regardless of whether they're legal or illegal immigrants. David Goldberg's Racial Culture says that racial humility may be interpreted as aversive, academic, legalistic, economic, scientific, cultural, linguistic, religion, bureaucratic, mythical, or ideological. He also stresses that racism towards African Americans has been widespread. Racism issues exist in diverse places and at all different times under different conditions caused by globalization. The Marxist class theory is a direct case study relating to global racism in the media. Marx made a case saying that society has two classes: the exploited, which is the working class, and the exploiters, the owners of the means of production. He went on to say that one class would eventually overpower the other using any means necessary. Looking at the American society today, we can clearly see the development of the two classes that Marx has talked about. Also, the segmentation theory is directly connected to racism in the media. Michael Reich developed the segmentation theory in the 1980s. Also known as divide and rule, the segmentation theory attempts to explain racism from an economic point of view. In this theory, Reich suggests that the main goal in society is to maximize profits. As a result, the exploiters will attempt to do almost anything to ensure success. They will attempt things like weakening the bargaining power of the working class by splitting it along racial lines, such as having a high concentration of black women and men in the secondary labor market. These upper-class exploiters would also promote prejudices, cause segregation among the black community, and make certain that the upper-class benefit from this racism is against African Americans. There are steps being taken to eradicate this form of racism in the global media. A law has been passed in Peru against racism in the media. The law was passed by LUNDU, Center for Afro-Peruvian Studies and Empowerment. Peru's mainstream television programs have regularly used ethnically immoral and racial remarks in order to keep their audiences entertained. They have two popular characters on television named Negro Mama and Paisana Jacinta. These two characters are extreme stereotypes that portray indigenous people of Peru and were largely accepted as valid from the people of Peru. Since 2007, LUNDU has effectively begun to challenge racism, sexism, and human rights infringements against Afro-Peruvian women and youth. Looking at this issue globally, we can also see steps being taken around the world to eradicate racism in the media. One of the problems with this, though, is that it is very hard to determine where to draw the line, based on everyone's universal human rights. Also, the kind of government also comes into play. For example, South Africa is a democracy, and they have gone through a great deal of changes within their media. They have taken jobs such as editors, journalists, and writers away from the white men and given them to the blacks. They believe that this will allow them to rid their media of racism and stereotyping. In Section 6 of Africa's Press Code, it states, "The press should avoid discriminatory or derogatory references to people's race, color, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation or preference, physical or mental disability or illness, age, or other status, except where it is strictly relevant to the matter reported." But it is not only in television. Global racism exists through all forms of telecommunications, one example being the internet. Earlier this year, a student of UCLA named Alexandra Wallace posted a YouTube on video blatantly bashing the Asian culture. She spent the entirety of the video complaining about how Asians are too loud in the library, saying remarks such as ching chang chong, and also insulting their families and culture. But because the internet is such a vast place full of so many different opinions, Alexandra's video has made many people extremely upset, getting hostile, and even sending her death threats. In the long run, she dropped out of UCLA, claiming to fear for her own safety. This is a prime example of how ignorant some people can be, and how simple it is to post racism through the global media without even realize that you're doing it. Whether it is posting a video online bashing the Asian culture or creating stereotypical characters in a television program, the racism and xenophobia is always present. Racism has been portrayed not only in America, but all over the world, as seen by television programs in Peru to the Code of Law in South Africa. No matter what the form of media is that it sends through, racism is clearly evident in all forms of the media globally and is causing a huge problem within globalization and the racial stereotypes that are being spread across the world. As we can see, the problem with media can easily be eradicated, but it will take a lot of work and trying to figure out what lines to be crossed and how to do it effectively.
I don't know.
God.